No.
We good? We
Tweet
live? I think we're live, yeah. Welcome to the second week of the 9 to 5 podcast. My name is Scott, and we have today Jake, Jordan, Mark, and Seth. Welcome, everyone. So we're going to be taking some questions from anyone that tweets out to at 9 to 5 Mac, probably in about 40 minutes in or so. First, what we're going to talk about is the new iMac and iTunes, but I think I want to start out, if you guys don't mind, with the new iTunes that came out just yesterday. So after much ado and after much delay, we actually had iTunes 11 come out yesterday. So it seems like the general consensus is that it actually seems really streamlined, that it's really fast, that it's working really well for everyone. So I guess, Mark, do you want to start out? And I know that you're not a big iTunes user, but what's your take on it?
I think it looks good. The interface is more streamlined and it's easier to use. Up Next is great. I know Jake liked it. Maybe Jake likes it a lot. Do you?
Actually, I downloaded it just to take screenshots. I haven't used it. I mean, I'm a big Spotify user, so not really no reason to. Looks nice though. I don't know.
I think they focused a lot. It feels a little fast, but not much faster. I would have liked it was, quicker to scroll and whatnot, and click through album art. But it's simple. You could really tell that, where they're going. You want to come back to me? Think about it some more.
Well, one thing I posted on Tumblr today, on my blog, where we were kind of discussing, I think there was a couple articles talking about Apple's streaming service that's supposedly coming out in 2013. And I see the way that streaming could be integrated into iTunes is where you could pick a song that's currently in your iTunes library, right-click it, and say Start a Genius playlist from the iTunes store. So any song that's in the iTunes store that kind of relates to your song, then it could stream all of those songs, and then that kind of increases sales because you'd be actually purchasing those songs as well. So I guess, Mark and also Jake, since you guys aren't really big iTunes users, do you think that a service like that, with having Genius kind of using all of the iTunes music store, would that actually be a little bit more tempting for you?
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. I heard someone theorize a couple of days ago that Apple should buy Rdio to assist with all this streaming business.
Well, they already bought one company. What was that?
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot the name.
Lala?
Yeah, Lala.
Yeah.
But I think they could do what they're doing a lot better. I mean, there's companies that are doing it better, and I think if they don't watch out, Google could catch up and do something a little better.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, so what I wanted to say was that, you could really tell that they're focusing now on the media content itself versus using iTunes as like a management software. Like, even from iTunes 1.0 to 10, I think we ended up at 10.7, was, there was a lot of focus on the management of your devices and whatnot, but it's really a media focus with the new version, and you could tell that by the new media-driven tab, and with iCloud and Wi-Fi sync and whatnot. I think that that's really what they're going for.
Okay. Yeah, I think some sort of a streaming service is really starting to become necessary, but appeasing the studios is really going to be the most difficult part. Because of course they have all the agreements, which Pandora is finding out that they're kind of having some troubles getting into copyright laws and how they can actually stay in business with really expensive copyright necessities for staying in business. So I think iTunes is really going to be the one to see, okay, where's the future of streaming with iTunes? Lala was really, when was that purchased? That was a long, long time ago that they actually went ahead and they purchased that. And I guess iTunes Match integrates it, but people were expecting that right away a streaming service was going to come out. So, Jordan, you've been kind of quiet. So what do you kind of think of some sort of a streaming service?
I've never been big on internet radio stuff or streaming services, so I don't know. Apple would have to kind of do something really innovative to catch my attention. If they were to just put out like a Pandora clone, I don't think that's going to do anything. What you're talking about integrating it with Genius, is that what you're saying? I'm getting a lot of feedback from someone. I don't know who that is.
I'm going to blame that on Elise.
Yeah, I couldn't really hear you guys for a bit there earlier. But yeah, I think that would be cool, integrating something into Genius where, it's some sort of subscription service where it's just spitting out songs that iTunes already has there and already knows you like, opposed to just, a discovery thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one of the possibilities. I think we went from the interface to streaming services really quickly. So anyone that does use iTunes, because I know I use iTunes all the time, but anyone else that uses iTunes, what do you guys think of the actual interface that came out? Nobody uses iTunes? Oh, yeah.
I'm not a huge iTunes user, but I listen to podcasts on iTunes. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge fan of the new mini player, actually. Feels like I have to click twice as many times to get to everything, and can't see this. You can't see the song when it's playing on the new mini player. Where you're at in the track.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that, but the rest of it, I haven't used it, haven't spent much time with it, but it all looks really nice. And obviously, the old iTunes was, it's a long time coming. Anything would have been a huge update over what we had before. So.
Well, one thing I was thinking,
I'm liking it so far.
Apple obviously delayed it by a lot. Now, what if they had actually, this is obviously going to be controversial, but what if they had delayed the release of Maps and actually done a little bit more effort into that? Do you feel like that they could have improved it within a month and made it so that it was more worthwhile rather than just pushing it out as soon as possible? Or was it really necessary to push it out and get feedback really quickly?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious it's going to take longer than a month. It's already been a month, right? So.
And then we would have been talking a delay of iOS 6 because besides Maps, what does iOS 6 really bring? It would have been iOS 5 dot whatever it was. I don't know. But yeah, I think Maps is kind of pivotal on iOS 6, and it needs a lot of work.
See, I'm one of the weirdos that I actually don't mind it. I've only had it where I'm I'll be driving down the street and it'll navigate and say, merge left a little bit, merge right a little bit, even though I'm just going on a straight road. Or one time it told me to get off the highway and make a right, even though on screen it said to make a left.
It threw me 9 miles off course one time.
Okay, so obviously I'm a little bit different compared to everyone else, but
it was funny during the beta. No one really complained. I think everything was fine.
Well, because I thought it was just the beta.
True, but I used it during the beta. I didn't have any problems.
See, and Matt on Twitter just asked me if I miss Street View, but I never used it. I'll use Street View kind of for fun on Google Maps on the website. But I felt like going into Street View took so long just for them to it does that whole entire animation to get into it, and then you can look around, but maybe it's just where I am that all the pictures are really bad. But I never really found much use for it. Okay, so yeah, that's one thing to consider is how much time could have been put into Apple Maps to really improve it. There was somebody else that was also talking about how Apple Maps is really doomed because Apple is now looking to TomTom for advice. And if you're looking to TomTom...
That's not true. That's not true. They're not looking for TomTom for advice. TomTom is one of the main providers, and basically Apple didn't go out and take any data. They don't do that with $100 billion in the bank. They didn't do that. They bought a bunch of databases from companies, and including TomTom, and a lot of TomTom's data screwed up, and that's why we're having all these issues driving into oceans, driving 9 miles off course. And so what they were saying, Bloomberg's report was saying, is that Eddie Q is doing what Forstall didn't do, and he's pushing TomTom to fix their stuff so it gets fixed for Apple's users. But
yeah, I feel like the other big issue is that there's a lack of point of interest points throughout all of the United States, especially from where I am. If you just type in gas, supposedly there's only 3 gas stations in all of Phoenix. So it's stuff like that where you try to just find gas, food, restaurant. You type in something, and it used to be that Google would show you a lot of different places around you, but I think point of interest is really where it's lacking.
Yeah, I didn't mean to, say what you're saying was not true. It was just that a lot of people were misreporting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's we can get into misreporting where supposedly Apple makes 12-inch system on a chips, but that was another interesting thing today. So somebody also asked me, do you think Apple feels any nostalgia over Apple Maps, or is it just a jealousy of Google? That's not really something I was thinking. Did they just want to push out their own maps for the sake of getting rid of Google? Or Mark, we've talked about this a lot, where you say that it's more Apple really wants to start having its own services. Is that do you still like?
Oh, I thought it was
like
pretty simple. They just wanted to kick off Google. I think Seth said this. Like Steve Jobs is at the point where he'd rather give people a map from a gas station than have Google Maps on the phone. Is that you, Seth?
He can't talk. All right, I guess this will be a great podcast then. His mic isn't even on. Okay, well, so you feel like it's more they want to kick Google off rather than they actually want to have their own service?
Could you repeat your question?
Okay, so do you feel like it's more they want to kick Google off of iOS rather than...
Right, yeah, it's kicking, like you saw they got rid of YouTube as well, and yeah, so they got rid of the two main Google properties on iOS, which was YouTube and Maps. Those were, when you think about what you do on a phone, and like a multimedia phone like the iPhone, smartphone like the iPhone, Maps and YouTube are two really big things. So getting rid of those two, Google properties is a big deal for Apple in terms of their pursuit for getting rid of Google. I mean, it was a real personal thing for Jobs. You read the biography, you read all that. So yeah, I think that, did they rush Apple Maps? I think they were planning on coming out with it this year. I mean, you can see in terms of the features that they planned, you can see everything is roadmapped. Like you have different features each year and they all go together and they're all spaced out. They're not going to put all their eggs in one basket. And you can see, they were clearly planning to have every different features, across all the years, and Apple Maps was in development for a while, clearly, and this was the year they were going to do it. I don't think they executed it as well as they could have with the amount of time they might have put into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when should have Apple Maps come out? Because obviously, I think when you have a Maps application, it's not like you can be all over the place, all over the world at all times and trying to gather data and make it better. So it's really about trying to get users out there and trying to get at least some sort of feedback. And I've seen it where some people said that they reported problems 7 months ago and those problems still haven't been fixed. So
there's a couple points on that. So what I'm saying is, first, their execution, I've said this a few times already, they could have put it on the App Store as a beta this year. I think they just wanted it to come out this year in some form. I don't think putting it on the phone, pre-installed, replacing the very reliable Google Maps and calling it fantastic and marketing it and whatnot, I don't think that was the right decision.
So it should have been like Siri to put a beta label on it?
You can't do that with a Maps app. You have to... So if you want to put a beta on it, they should have put it on the App Store and kept Google Maps.
But who would have used it then?
People interested... what do you mean? Of course, people would use it. It would probably be the #1 app right now on the App Store. Yeah.
So people would use it over
want to test
Google Maps?
It out. I mean, it works in some places, but you have Google Maps in case you want to use that. And I think eventually, as time goes on and there's enough information, there's enough fixes, they could have made that replacement in iOS 7. It would have been a seamless transition for Apple, for the users, for everyone. And right now, we wouldn't have any of this backlash because there's Google Maps to fall on.
But then, as you said, then they would have still had Google Maps on it.
That's true. They would have gotten rid of it. They would have presented that they're getting rid of it. A lot of people would have used it instead of it, but that would completely prevent the backlash. I think the idea was there. I think the timing was mostly right, but I think the execution was bad. And execution is not a bottom thing. Execution's at the top. You can see that Eddie Q is replacing the entire leadership team of Maps. They got rid of Forstall. That might have been from other issues, but definitely Maps contributed. But if you have all these engineers working on these products, fine. but it's up to the leadership team how to execute it, how to market it, when to put it out there. And I don't think they did a good job at that. Yeah.
Well, there was somebody on Twitter, I don't know if I can find it again. They kept on arguing that Eddie Q actually needs to be fired. Because I obviously think that's the most ridiculous thing in the world, because he has all the ins with all of Hollywood, with all of the music producers, so he has a lot of connections that are completely invaluable. And it wouldn't make any sense to get rid of him. And it just, it seems like a weird thing to just keep on firing everybody and hoping that this new Apple management will be clean and be able to execute. But do you feel like Eddie Q was to blame for Apple Maps?
Eddie Q had nothing to do with Maps. Like, if you listen to Fidel's interview from the other day, he said carefully, Forstall got what he deserved, and then that was sort of like as he was getting cut off at the end, he said that, there's other bright people, I think he used the word amazing, people at Apple who will get their chance to shine. Mm-hmm. So from everything we've seen and learned about Forstall from before and after them announcing the transition from him out of the company, he was taking such a big gulp amount of engineers. He was trying to take all the spotlight and whatnot, and that really shined away from Apple's other rising stars and already existing stars to be able to, do their work, present their ideas. So I think it was pretty clear that Forstall wanted to own the Maps team, wanted to own the Maps product, and I don't think Q had much to do with it. I think it was a Forstall thing. Rich Williamson worked under Forstall. He was put under Q after the transition. And before he was fired, he actually reported to the head of iCloud. So they moved Maps under iCloud. So, but he's gone, and I'm sure they're going to make a lot of changes there.
Isn't it that Eddie Q is going to have like so many responsibilities?
It's a collaborative thing. Like, I was thinking about this earlier. Like, when you think about, a lot of people were saying that they split up Forstall's duties across the 4 VPs who got promotions. And then when you think about that in context, he was running so much stuff, and I guess it just backfired in the end. He wanted to take the most control over everything he could. He was pushing people out of the way, and he got what he deserved. He was pushed out. Everything, it's funny, everything got spread across, and I think that's just going to benefit Apple, because there's going to be different parts of iOS, which made up a lot of stuff, worked on individually. And in the end, it'll all come together in a better package with, instead of just Forstall trying to take over all the decisions, it'll be a very big group decision. And I don't think we'll see screw-ups like Apple Maps happen again because of that. Or smaller screw-ups. But
if you look at Apple's executive profiles page, I think it's the most unique set of titles for a technology company or any company in general.
CEO?
Okay. Well, obviously that one is quite normal. Thank you, Mark. But Internet Software and Services, Software Engineering, and then we have a Senior Vice President of Technologies and a Senior Vice President of Hardware Engineering, Industrial Design, and so it seems like obviously there's other companies that have lots of vice presidents with different titles, but for them to be so critical when it's a title such as Industrial Design and Internet Services and Software, it seems like they're trying to do a different type of management that is focused more on like a certain I'm trying to think of even the word, a certain category of thinking, rather than just being, oh, you're all of this type of product, you're all of this type of product. It's more about you do the design, you do the technology behind it. So is Apple right in this new type of operations, this new type of management?
Well, when you think about it, a lot of the titles are like new. They're within the last 5 years. Like Technologies is new, the Internet Services is new, Design's old. Senior Vice President of Operations, I think that was a Jeff Williams new position. Like he was a VP of Operations to promote him to Senior VP, and Cook was COO. That's another topic all in itself, why it's Williams, not COO. Of course, you have like the CFO, CEO, marketing, that's there. But I think they just put Apple's best people at the top. But in terms of like VPs managing products, like they have the senior VPs and then the VPs. And there's like a VP of iPhone marketing, VP of iPhone hardware. Same with iPad, VP of iPad marketing, VP iPhone iPad hardware. So it goes much deeper than just the senior VPs.
Yeah. Well, anyone else? Jake, what do you think of the new management structure?
I think it's good. I'm happy. What's his name? Mansfield stayed on. I think he kind of knows what's up and has been there for a while, so he kind of can keep it under control. The technologies group's pretty interesting. I'm pretty sure that's like chips and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wireless and chips.
Right.
So, and I think that was part of Forstall's duties, being dropped down to other people. Like his wireless stuff. Like there's a lot of wireless stuff in iOS put under Mansfield, and then the wireless hardware like the antenna systems, and then their system on a chips like the A series chips like in the iOS devices, all under Mansfield. And I'm sure he's helping still, like transitioning a lot of groups over to Riccio's hardware group. But what will be very interesting to see is in 2 years, Mansfield's gone for sure, according to him, in 2 years. Do they bring everything back under Riccio? Because like when Mansfield was gone and Riccio was the senior vice president of all hardware, like it was like for 2 months. I assume all the people who were under Mansfield were under Riccio. So I guess those were the hardware groups that Mansfield was most involved with and really wanted to be a part of during his last 2 years of the company. So it will be interesting to see if they promote a successor to Mansfield or if they just move it back.
I'm wondering what Forstall's day-to-day has been like since the whole shakeup, because he's reporting to Tim Cook. He's like, I forget the official title.
Advisor.
He's
advising to him, yeah.
So I'm wondering like how that works. Like what's the day-to-day
That's not a job. He doesn't have a job.
Okay, it's just
basically it's like you can't go anywhere else because you're working.
I got you.
Yeah, somebody was saying that HP needs to fire Meg and actually hire him as the CEO.
Yeah, I was on Forbes. I thought it was sort of ridiculous.
I don't know if he's CEO material just yet. He seems a little bit like wild.
He was trying to do too much. Like he was trying to.
Isn't that what HP's trying to do?
Yeah, I don't think he could hurt HP anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, his current role, I think, just to go over more of what Jake said, it's like I'm sure he's anytime they're like interviewing people or talking to people within his group, I'm sure they can call him up, but I don't think he's coming to the office every day. I don't think he's actually there.
Do you think he's going to be able to go anywhere else? Like, don't they sometimes have contracts that say you can't go work for a competitor in this field?
Yeah, they have those, but in California they're not very binding. Okay. What is that called? Non-compete agreements?
You're right.
Yeah.
I think Forstall is definitely looking for his next thing, and knowing him, he's probably looking for something big. It's interesting that his brother is a big guy at Microsoft, and obviously Google probably want someone of his talents, and I'm sure everybody else, maybe RIM would want, put him at CEO or something. I don't know. But he's definitely not like showing up at the office every day at Apple.
I think it's gonna be really interesting to see where he goes.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm looking forward to the Tony Fadell interview retort at some point because I think that'll be pretty interesting. And I would have loved to hear more from Tony about exactly why Forstall got what he deserved. I think that was. I mean, that's one of the most candid things I've ever heard an Apple executive, former or current, ever say about another one.
And even a Forstall tell-all would be cool, just to hear what he...
Yeah, maybe you should just write a book.
Yeah.
I'd read it.
I mean, he's not going to be hurting for the rest of his life, and I'm sure this last year Apple's paying him a lot not to go somewhere else. So...
He's obviously set for life, but I think it's the power that he's striving for.
Right. I mean, he was controlling the OS on, a certain portion of the world's handsets. So
yeah.
No, he doesn't.
And he obviously wanted to be CEO at some point, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, he seemed like he was on kind of that kick.
Could be his next period. You never know.
Right. Or he starts his own company and.
Right.
Well, didn't this whole entire fallout, didn't this give him a bad name though?
Well, I mean, look at Jobs. He had a bad name too.
I think he
it's
was even
good
in a
and bad.
worse. I think Jobs was even in a worse situation.
Yeah.
Name-wise.
But he never had to try and join another company. So are you suggesting that even if his name is really bad, he can start a new company?
I think he wouldn't have any problems getting investors.
I think he can do whatever he wants, honestly. I mean, look what he's done.
You should join Color.
Oh God! Please don't even say Color.
Color.
Thanks. I think because I mean the other thing is that Steve Jobs was able to start Next from scratch, and nowadays if you're trying to start a company that's competing with Apple, that's not even going to happen because you need to have the huge infrastructure behind you. And
Google
you
started
need to have
Android.
Yeah, but they already had. Well,
They bought Android.
they used the resources of the other manufacturers like Samsung and all of the other HTC, everybody else that uses Android. They didn't have to start making hardware from scratch. So I guess they could always start making an operating system like the other Apple former VP. How he's starting is that like cloud operating system? Isn't that what he's starting?
Soleil up there.
Yeah.
It's like a cloud-related stuff.
We don't
they haven't-
actually know what it is yet.
Yeah, but they say it's cloud-related, but they haven't specified yet. They also have some other former Apple high levels, like I think a vice president, but Soleil is definitely the biggest name there. They also have a VC on staff.
And Soleil is also on the board of Parallels.
Yeah.
And
I
he
don't
also
know
was
that
at the last keynote, which I thought was really interesting.
That was interesting, I thought. Agree.
First
I don't
row.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like he
people.
was in the...
Nosebleeds.
Why was he there?
No idea.
I mean,
what
clearly he's
was
on
they-
good. Clearly, he's on good terms with Apple. Don't expect to see Forcell at an Apple event 2 years down the road. I mean,
Like,
it was
is there
a big
some sort of
event.
service
Like,
that they announced that
like,
he would have been a part of?
no, not really. But it was a big event. They wanted like a lot of people. They were their favorite people. They even rented out the big place this time, like iPad Mini.
Just a special guest out of respect, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look at who created the basis of iOS, and they took iOS to the next level with the iPad Mini, I guess. I mean, it was really, for Soleil, I mean, it was really the future of what he created, like the future of the Mac, like with the new iMacs, the new Mac hardware, and the future of iOS, like the iPad Mini. So I thought that was nice. And he was sitting next to the guy from Path, I think, Dave Morin, I think.
Really? I didn't even know he was there.
Maybe it was someone else, but I think it was him.
So can we talk new iMacs? I'm kind of excited about those.
I think the one thing that I really noticed was that the packaging is really, really strange.
Yeah, that is terrible. I'm not a fan.
Well, I don't mind it, but just think about trying to like stack those boxes. Obviously, a very odd thing to mention, but why that design? Because it doesn't even reflect what the actual iMac looks like.
Kind of. I mean, it kind of bevels at the back, but
No, but the packaging is like this.
well,
So
one
instead of
side
being
it's
a regular
one
box.
side it's like this. I think it's like one side's flat. And,
You
Right.
could stack them just like one face up, one face down, and it'll end up being
I
flat.
mean, if they go both like this, so
I don't know if you want to stack. I guess the iMac, it wouldn't matter if you stacked it upside down.
I'm sure Apple has it figured out, honestly.
Well, I guess they'd make the whole box thinner, but they need it bigger for the stand at the bottom, right? So
yeah.
That's
I'm
true.
sure the Walmart guys know how to stack them.
Oh God.
Yeah.
All right, let's open it up for questions. So if you guys do have a question, you can tweet at 9to5Mac, and we'll look through those questions to see if there's any that we're going to answer here. So at 9to5Mac on Twitter, let's see if we have any questions that are coming through. When using the iPad, you can no longer see pictures with links because the no mobile platform you guys use sucks. Okay. Well, we'll blame that on Seth.
We're trying out a new thing. Some people like it. A lot of people don't like it.
I
We're
think
gonna give it a month.
Do you want to talk about that a little more?
Are these all going to be questions about the new iPad site?
We can talk about.
Oh,
no. Wait, were you serious?
Sides?
We'll answer any questions about Apple current events that are happening. Apparently, the mustache that's on my head. And that was just a question that was asked a while ago, very unrelated. Oh, there we go. 3 new tweets. This is about to air on NBC Night News.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna add that to the post.
That's about the Brian Williams post.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Jake's
All right,
gonna
Jordan
be busy on
Golson
that.
from Mac Rumors.
Scott.
Do you think Gurman's head looks like a volleyball? We can answer that question. Mark wasn't very happy about that, though. Sorry, Jordan.
I think it's more a basketball.
So they want
All
to.
right. Yeah.
They want to know about the new iMac screen size. Well, there's not really a new screen size. It's kind of like the same deal, and I haven't seen one in person. I can't give you a judge on the quality, but from what I've read, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, people say the screen looks better, both the color reproduction, the angles, but also because it has less glass. There's less reflection, and the glass reflection was probably the biggest complaint people had about Apple displays in general. So all around, it's kind of like, a little better.
And as we discussed before, I think people have said it's like near Retina. When you look at it, it looks like flawless. They can't call it Retina because of the certain specifications for that term. But nonetheless, it's supposed to be pretty amazing.
It's the same resolution as the last model.
There was somebody else that pointed out...
The iMac's the same resolution?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you move back like this,
Uh-huh.
it becomes Retina
Okay, I got you.
because you can't see the pixels anymore.
Very nice, Seth. Somebody else was asking when we're actually going to see the ability to merge iTunes accounts. Because that was promised a long, long time ago, and I'm really hoping that we can get that because my iTunes account is different than my my iCloud account. So being able to merge that would be a good thing. So something like that. Obviously, we don't have any information on when it's going to happen, but
Was it promised? I thought it was like one of those. Somebody said Tim Cook emailed them saying that they were.
no, they got
working
a
on it or
call or
something.
something, which is obviously less verifiable. But it was mentioned at least. So
I don't
it's
know if
something
it's going to
that.
happen, honestly.
Why?
It's just not on Apple's agenda, radar.
It
Just don't
seems
care.
like a music label type of thing, like in terms of music ownership from the download.
Yeah. All right. Are there any other ones? I'm trying to respond to a tweet here.
Any news on 10.9?
Yeah, we reported
It exists.
like a week ago or 2 weeks ago that it's going to have Siri and Maps integration. It's going to be maybe not a Maps app, possibly, we don't know that yet, but developers who write apps for the Mac App Store will be able to embed an Apple Map into their application if they so choose, much like you can do on iOS and in iOS. Yeah, that's what we know for now. And of course, Siri will have maps on OS 10.
I'm still hoping for iBooks. I'm always going to complain about that. I really wish we had iBooks on it. The second part of Casey's question was commentary on iTunes interface elements inspiring 10.9. So a lot of people were saying that 10.9 really looks like something out of Ives'
iTunes 11.
design cave.
It's not.
Yeah. I know you guys were talking about that yesterday on Twitter, trying to figure out which designer, which executive was the head of the iTunes design.
Yeah, Louis Mantia, who used to work at Apple,
Mm-hmm.
he made the iTunes 10 icon. He said publicly that it was a Eddie Q, Jeff Robin thing, and Q, we know who that is, and Robin's the head of iTunes.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, well, who's to say still that?
These things don't get designed in a month. Like,
Yeah.
I've got software design privileges a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you think do you think 10.9 will look like iTunes 11?
I mean,
At all?
iTunes 11 doesn't look much different than any other apps. Like, I don't really see that many new interface elements.
Plus the other OSs don't really look like iTunes either. The previous iTunes. I think iTunes was kind of an outlier of a design, I guess.
One thing I thought was interesting is that if you enable this sidebar, all of those icons actually have color, which obviously the color was first taken out with iTunes, and then the operating system, Mac OS X, actually lost colors after that. And so do you think we're actually, that's one thing that we can kind of debate. Do you think that we're actually going to start seeing colors, or is it going to be more, Ives ways are going to be more chrome and silver and less color?
I think that's a good point. I don't know. I mean, the fact that Ive is officially in charge right now and they released it with color, maybe that's where things are going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, we haven't seen color since what, the color IMAX, or the color the books as well. Yeah,
it's been so long.
Yeah. So all right, that's one thing to consider is how 10.9 is going to look. If it's going to be a complete redesign, or if it's going to be something where Ives' advice is not really going to come into play until either 10.10 or 11.0.
10.10.
Do you think we're going to have a 10.10?
I mean, it'll be like 10.1, but I think 10.9 will be the last 10 point.
Really?
Something.
That's interesting.
10.10, wouldn't that be like 10.1?
What are they going to do?
In terms of math.
Are they going to do iOS or OS 11? Or are they just going to merge the two? Are they going to what is going to be after 10.9?
It will be interesting to see. I mean, there's no reason. I mean, if they're going to go to 11, it's going to be drastic. I mean, do you think they're prepared to go iOS as one umbrella 2-3 years down the road?
Me personally, I think that it's just going to be 10.10, another cat. That's it.
I mean, who says they have to go based on like a 10?
Yeah, I don't know. They can just say it's a cat, or they can just say, I don't know. They could just keep the next cat forever, or maybe they keep, whatever.
Maybe they change the complete branding. Like, nobody says 10.9 is literally 10.9. Like, it could be different marketing branding,
Yeah, but I don't see Apple caring about the nomenclature 10.10 as a why are we changing up our whole operating system philosophy just because 10.10 is kind of weird sound.
Right.
Yeah, I think we can kind of mention how you brought up where iOS might be even merging with OS X. So is that happening sometime soon?
My guess is not soon, just because if they could do it, they would probably have been making bigger strides than they have. It seems like they're doing it on the surface rather than doing it behind the scenes. And there's still a lot of things that you need a Mac to do. I think we talked about this before, but it's kind of frustrating sometimes using an iOS device when you need to upload a picture or do whatever to a website, and you're like, okay, crap, I have to go downstairs and get my Mac.
Yeah, and I think I was reading CNET's review of the iMac this morning, and one of the reasons they gave it 4 out of 5 is because it doesn't have a touch screen. And so they were saying that was something that was a con, and that it really, nowadays some consumers might be frustrated that there's no touchscreen. And then the other thing they didn't like was that there was no HDMI support. Okay. So that's. Do you think we're going to see touchscreens within the next year on OS X devices, or is it really that we're never ever going to see them on OS X devices?
I don't think so. I mean, they clearly have a clear divide between the iOS software and the iOS products, and the OS X software and the OS X hardware products, and it's a completely different approach. It's Microsoft's one-size-fits-all approach, But yeah, Tim Cook was pretty clear about that a few times over his last speaking engagements over the course of the year about like how Apple has their approach. He thinks there's going to be laptops and desktops, and then you have your iOS stuff. And I think we'll see the iPad change into being more of a Mac replacement rather than the Mac itself change into being less of a Mac, like a more portable touch Mac. You see what I'm saying? Like the Mac won't decrease in functionality, but I think the iPad will increase in functionality to match the Mac.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, today we talked about iTunes 11 and what that means for, what could be happening next year with Apple's streaming services. We also talked about the iMac and a little bit, and the packaging, of course. And hopefully we were able to, it looked like we answered most of the questions today. So next week we'll be doing the same thing, Friday, same time, same place. Thank you all for joining us, and I guess you guys can all say adios.
Adios.
All right, thank you all.